Commonwealth Secretary-General Patricia says King Charles III has a daunting task in following the example of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II. She died on Thursday at the age of 96. Charles is now proclaimed the new British king in a ceremony at St. James's Palace in London. Scotland says the Queen served the British people with dignity, and Giles Gibson is following developments for us from London. Giles, good evening to you and welcome. Quite an extraordinary afternoon and historic, and the realization, I imagine, of years and years of perhaps ambition even to ascend to this position on the part of King Charles.
That's right. We are just steps away from St. James's Palace here in central London, just a few hundred metres down there, and that's where all the action over the course of the day has been taking place. The meeting of the Accession Council. This is part of the Privy Council which advises the monarch on important matters of state. What we saw first was that council meeting without Charles present. We saw them reading a proclamation proclaiming that he is the new sovereign and also proclaiming the death of Elizabeth II. We heard, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, some of the language is very medieval, is very long-winded. We heard the clerk of the council saying, "We do now hereby publish and proclaim that Prince Charles is now Charles III." And then we had this moment where it became very clear that we have now moved on from the Elizabethan age, if you like. We are in a new age, because we heard that group of senior politicians that make up the Accession Council proclaiming, "God save the King." That, of course, is a phrase that has not been heard here in the United Kingdom since 1952, when Queen Elizabeth II took power. So this was, as you say, a historic, a momentous occasion just a few hours ago, just down the road behind me at St. James's Palace.
And it would be appropriate then, Giles, that King Charles III now would be setting a new tone for what his era is likely to be like. And this happens in a time where there's a lot of turmoil and a lot of uncertainty for UK society, saying in his speech today that the UK needs a steady hand. Tell us more about what the essence and the ethos of his monarchy is likely to be like, based on what he has said.
I'm afraid I couldn't catch your question, but really what we're seeing here is this country moving on to a new stage, and we're also seeing King Charles really moving into this role. Of course, it's only a couple of days since he lost his mother, which for many people would be an incredibly difficult time. For almost everybody, it would be a time of mourning and a time of grief, and perhaps when they would want to be behind closed doors, not in the public eye. Of course, if you're the heir to the throne and now the king, that is not a choice that is open to you. And what we've seen first with that inaugural speech from King Charles III, addressing the nation and the world for the very first time, then appearing at this Accession Council and also making another speech dedicating his thoughts, his memories to his late mother, talking about how it was an irreparable loss. And now we see Charles having to take on other ceremonial duties. We are expecting him over the next few days to start making his way around the United Kingdom. All of the sort of pomp and ceremony that we've seen taking place over the last 24 to 48 hours, that's all taken place in a very small area of central London at St. James's Palace and at Buckingham Palace. And what we are now going to see is Prince Charles making his way to Northern Ireland, to Scotland and to Wales, the four corners of this country that he is now head of state for.
And Giles, it's a pity you can't hear me, but we're seeing live visuals there, of course, of senior royals still gathered in Balmoral, reading tributes to the Queen that were left outside the estate. More members of the royal family there in these really important moments following the demise of the Queen. The Prince, or now the King, King Charles III, as you're saying, Giles, officially becoming monarch in these historic ceremonies at St. James's Palace and the Royal Exchange in London. As you affirm, they're swearing this oath and paying tribute to the Queen at a meeting of the Accession Council. We're going to leave it there with our SABC News correspondent, Giles Gibson.